We have a question from Sean Killian. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I would just like to read it because I think it's also giving good feedback to you.
Okay.
Your books are very popular within the Navy and the Coast Guard communities, with them regularly seen being read by sailors at sea and shore. So thank you for that. And now to the question. My question being, where do you draw from for the leadership style and philosophy of Honor Harrington?
Okay. The central core of what makes Honor Harrington who she is, there are, I think, two strands that come together, and both of them are very important to me in my own life. I don't do as well as she does in living up to them all the time. But the first one is, Honor is a responsibility taker. I think that's one of the things that draws people to her a lot. She's like, she doesn't care who created the problem. What she cares about is whether or not she can fix it, or whether or not she can try to fix it. Okay, and so I think people like that in the character. The other thing is, Honor has a dark side. She's very good at killing people. And once she decides that that's the solution to the problem, that's what she does. I have a dark side. And for a long time in my 20s and my early 30s, I would go to country bars on Friday nights when I wasn't all that fond of the music or anything else, because I could count on somebody to get drunk and pick a fight with the big guy. And that was why I was going. I was working through some issues. What I think I finally figured out how to do, and what Honor does, is that dark side is subordinated to her compassionate side, to her need to protect those around her, as opposed to her need to just destroy people who piss her off. Okay, and it took me a long time to figure out that a lot of the anger issues that I was working through had to do with things that had happened to me earlier in my life, and my sense that I had been unable to protect some people that I cared for. And I literally, looking back, being fair to myself, I literally had been unable to. I wasn't big enough. I wasn't strong enough. I was just, it was my job to get between them and the problem and take the beating. And that was all I could do at that point. And that leaves a mark. So I think that those two parts of her personality are informed through my personal life experience to help me decide who I wish I could have been in those regards. And I think people look at Honor and that it strikes a chord. This is the kind of leader they would like to follow. This is the kind of code they would like to have. And the other thing about Honor is that despite Nimitz, she is damaged in many ways, and she has to deal with that. She has to work through it. But she works through it. She's not a victim of her damage. Okay, the damage may be the result of somebody who victimized her at an earlier point in her life, but she refuses to just say, well, I didn't do it, I can't help it, I can't deal with this. Okay, I think that's something else that people are attracted to in her. Honor is Honor is the person who makes the hard call. And she's a person who, one of my dear friends, we've lost him over a decade ago now, and in a small plane accident. But he was Colonel Maxwell MacGregor MacMahon. So you can guess why people called him Colonel Mac. But he was drafted for the Korean War and discovered that he liked the military, served through Desert Storm, was in the Special Forces community, et cetera. And he told me one time, he said, you know what the second worst moment in a combat commander's life is? And I said, no. And he said, okay, the second worst moment in a combat commander's life. The intelligence was good. The planning was good. The rehearsals were good. Everybody executed perfectly, and you accomplished all your mission objectives. And a 19-year-old is bleeding out in your arms, and you can't put the life back into him no matter what you do. And I said, that's the second worst moment. He said, yep. I said, what's the worst? He said, when you realize this is what you do best in all the world. Okay? And that's honor. There's a lot of Colonel Mack in honor. She carries the memory of every single person who's died, whether she knew that person or not. She carries the knowledge of all those deaths on either side with her, and she would love to stop. But she knows that she does it better than other people. And if she steps back, somebody else will have to do it, and they won't do it as well as she will. And more people will die than have to. Okay. And I think that's something that is very central to her character and that also draws people to her. But I think as far as the folks in the military who are drawn to her, I think a lot of it goes back to the very first book, to On Basilisk Station, and particularly when she tells, I think it's McKeon, when he says, nobody has tried to do all this crap you're doing and it's pissing everybody off. And she says, whether or not other people have done their duty has no bearing at all on whether or not it's my job to do mine. And I think that resonates with a lot of folks in the military and outside the military too, but especially in the military. I think that as a culture today, whether you are left or right or whatever, one of the things that you're tired of is this sense that people say, well, so-and-so did such and such, and that justifies me doing thus and so. Okay? It's not supposed to be about payback. It's not supposed to be about sort of balancing, my misdeeds balance your misdeeds. It's supposed to be about, what am I supposed to be doing? And then doing it. And that's what honor's about. Okay. I knew I was going to name her Honor from the beginning. Okay. And if the books hadn't gone quite as well as they went, we probably would have hung Honor on one of the girls, but I could not do that. No. That would have been too much, especially since they're Cambodian, like, oh yes, Honor Harrington, I see. But I didn't know what the last name was going to be, but I figured if the books worked, that they would be compared to Horatio Hornblower. So I figured, and I love the Hornblower books. Honor is nowhere near as neurotic as Hornblower, but anyway. But so I figured I would go ahead and give her HH for the initials. And I can't tell you where Harrington came from. It just seemed to go well, So that's how she came to be named Honor Harrington.
I just want to say that I think we saw a lot of wows in the comments. Thank you for sharing that story about your friend Mac. It really got chills, and I think I'm not the only one. And it strikes me that in many ways, not just resonating with values that already exist, but, people's favorite characters in many ways raise them and inspire them and, instill and mold the morals that we grow up with.